Coming towards the end, coach encouragement. Verbal encouragement is commonly used to motivate participants or maintain to increase the effort investment by the individual during the exercise. Supervision and verbal encouragement is suggested to have a positive impact on the intensity of play, increase the adherence to the exercise program, and drive the performance improvement. So again, makes sense. When the coach is engaged in the session and you as a coach are engaged in the session, you can have a really positive impact on your players by driving verbal encouragement, being told, well done, continue, work harder, whatever it may be. That encouragement drives the intensity even more. So again, another thing that we can use as a coach, as a conditioning coach, is something that we can use to our advantage in help driving the players, because that's what we're all about, is trying to drive the players to the next level. Recent research has shown an improvement in muscle activity, actually with some testing based on verbal encouragement. Yeah, when we're trying to provide more high force exercise, that's something that can be used in the gym or on the pitch, and especially in this content is to be used, especially in the small sided games when things can get a little bit sloppy, a little bit lazy, a little bit more fatigue's kicking in. We drive that intensity. Yeah, and that's the enthusiasm as a coach. Goalkeeper inclusion. Really interesting aspects, especially now on the basis that goalkeepers are becoming more and more apparent and have to be more competent with the ball at their feet than ever before. The demand for goalkeepers to be involved as an outfielder in the build-up play from the tactical perspective is hugely important. However, there's a couple of papers out, a couple of bit of research out there that have suggested how when we include the goalkeepers and goal situations, the game intensity decreases versus possession games. So we have to be aware of that. We have to understand that. But at the end of the day, we also realise the need and the importance of trying to include goalkeepers as much as possible, not only for our development and our realistic nature of involving them within the game and putting them in the same situations that they're required within the game situation, but at the same time understanding that, you know, for us to be better as a squad or a club or whatever it may be, or a system of play has to be better, we have to allow the goalkeepers involved. Not necessarily allow the goalkeepers involved, but have that understanding that the huge important part of the future game and how the game's progressing anyway. There is a little bit of research out there to suggest how there has been an increase in intensity. So there's a little bit of a contrasting opinion in terms of some literature suggesting how goalkeepers drop the average intensity, whereas some have also suggested that there's an increase in intensity, maybe based on the fact that increased motivation when goals are included, when goalkeepers are included. Again, from my point of view, it's something that I'm really interested to look a little bit further down the line, because the motivation to attack a goal or defend a goal can actually drive the subsequent load, the intensity. So again, it's something that I think further research, I think it's a really good researched area to look at again. And again, here's another infographic to sort of show how with the medium-sided games or transitional games, when we look at same area sizes, same player numbers, without goalkeepers, how the intensity did drop. But again, when teams have shots at goal, the time it takes to get balls in versus possession games, there's many different things that can affect it. However, again, I want you as candidates to understand the differences involved. The bout duration, vitally important to fully understand how the body reacts to the total duration of the performing exercise. Continuous versus interval based, so you can see on the graph here there's more continuous. This is taken from a game, 245 minutes, whereas here is taken out of a session where we look at different intervals within the session. Interval training lends itself more to small-sided and medium-sided games based on the fact that the smaller numbers, we can sustain intensity for short periods of time. However, what we don't want to do is overload to a level where we lose quality within the training session. So as a result of that, some of the research out there suggests, and personally in agreement, 2 to 4 minutes are generally optimal for a small-sided games training interval block. It's been shown that 4 to 6 minutes can decrease the intensity in the last minute or two of the exercise. So for me, I would rather and prefer the intensity to remain high and put more bouts in, as opposed to keep the durations long where the intensity drops and the sort of explosive nature of the session starts to drop. We know from some of the real top publishers in and around aerobic developments that between 3 and 5 minute periods, where we can ensure that we're getting more time above 85% of heart rate max, has a big influence on the aerobic endurance element of players. So from my point of view, the repetitive nature of the repetitive bouts of shorter duration are probably more suited to small-sided game formats. Whereas when we look at the larger sided games, obviously due to the number of players on the pitch, the intensity that is slightly less intensity, it lends itself to the bigger periods, the bigger bouts, the 5 to 10 minutes if we're looking at larger sided games, to generate overloads of the sort of key metrics and the stimulus that we require for that. So again, we start to think the small and medium sided games, more bouts, more repetitions of interval periods, short periods, versus the larger sided games, which lends itself more to the larger sort of blocks of work. We know that 1v1s and 2v2s, 20 seconds to 1 minute periods have a huge impact on different energy systems, and again, it's totally unrealistic. The larger games with the larger durations, we move down to the shorter games, or the smaller games with the shorter durations. So again, trial and error over time will allow you to understand what works best for you as a coach and what you're looking for. However, again, you have to understand, if you play a 3v3 for 6 or 7 minutes, from my point of view, you're not going to sustain the intensity, and you're not going to get the same explosive elements of what we require within these small-sided games. Game-based training monitoring. The last phase, or the last aspect of this particular session with you guys, is really interested in understanding, why we monitor, what we monitor, and especially within the game-based training aspects, there's specific things that we can look at. So, of course, GPS is quite prevalent within many different levels of the game now, and these are the 4 key sort of physical requirements, I suppose, or things that we can monitor when we talk about metrics. So we have, we can measure strength, the strength element of the sessions with accelerations, decelerations, those change of directions, those explosive actions, really developing that aspect within the muscle. The endurance nature of the training sessions or the games, based on energy expenditure or the total distance covered, when we look at that endurance capability to get around the pitch. We can look at power elements, so we look at metabolic power, we can look at metabolic distance power, looking at anything around about greater than 20 watts per kilogram, or any of those real high explosive actions lasting at least just under half a second, from the really high powerful actions and movements that we can monitor with the GPS metrics. And then speed, obviously, anything looking at greater than sprint distance, greater than, you look at, a lot of people have their own metrics, whether they use individual metrics, individual players, comparisons, or a lot of the research is discussed greater than 7 meters per second. So again, looking at number of sprints and sprint distances. So again, within the different types of game periods, we're able to sort of monitor what we're doing on a daily basis and understand what these metrics look like from different types of games. A study done a couple of years ago, we looked at the effects of a periodized sort of small-sided game training intervention. So we looked at some 4v4 games across a 4-week period in season. And we saw a huge improvement in the physical capacity, where we went from 5 3-minute games up to 11 3-minute games. And again, we started to see an improvement in the physical capacity of players in season, which was really quite beneficial to us at the club that I was working at the time. It was a period in season where we were able to utilise a programmed approach within the games to try and give us a bit of a boost towards the back end of the season. And really interested in looking at the repeated sprint capacity improvements, the speed and the aerobic efficiency of the players' improvement, and the work economy, which again, working at a higher intensity, but the body utilising or being more efficient with oxygen utilisation was something that was really beneficial. So again, trying to justify the methodology that we employed with the different types of games. Our last couple of slides, I want to show you this. It's a paper that's just been accepted actually, and something that I've really been using for a while, where we look at using small-sided games as an aerobic fitness assessment to supplement our physiological testing protocols with the players. Really interesting, where we looked at 3 3-minute games of a 5v5 in a 25 by 25 area. So the same number of players, same density, same duration, same recovery, free play, keep ball possession, verbal encouragement. So all these elements together that we've just spoken about there, we managed to put them within a testing protocol. And you can see the graph here. It basically shows an example of 5v5 test versus the yo-yo intermittent recovery test. And we basically goes to show, again, it's another way, high motivation levels, because players prefer to play football than do running tests. But we got to see here how the players with the greater endurance capabilities within the yo-yo test also produced more greater total distance covered within the 5v5 protocol as well. So again, another research study to justify and utilise now a small-sided or medium-sided game protocol as a fitness assessment, because the motivation really drives the players to perform well in this. And again, it's another way of supplementing a soccer-specific training approach and monitoring our players throughout the course of the season. So again, at any point in time, we're now getting to a point where we can use this football endurance test, as long as we explain to the players, look, the motivation must remain high. It double up as a conditioning tool in terms of 9 minutes high intensity work, football specific strength aspects within it. But again, it suggests the small-sided game protocol may be used as a supplement in soccer specific assessment of intermittent aerobic fitness. So something that we're really pleased on. And again, it's just another way of seeing where players are. If you join a club, having a little look at the data, seeing what players are producing, and again, pushing them on that as they get fitter, they can cover more distance. Again, real basic way of analysing performance. Which leads me on to the last sort of slide, really, an understanding. And again, something I wanted to get across to you guys is the fact that everybody will have a different way of training. There's all different methods employed, which is the one thing I love about the game. However, the one thing that is for sure, there must be an understanding of what you're doing on a daily basis, and there must be a justification of what you're doing. So here, for example, this particular game here, 3 minutes, we've got the physical outputs to the right hand side for this drill, and then an example of the video clip there, and again at the bottom. So 4v4 plus goalkeepers in a certain sized area. I know what the physical outputs are, and we have the video there showing an example of that. So again, you now start to justify what you're doing on a daily basis, because you understand what is required from those players within those particular drills. So if we summarise the session there's an increase in research over the last few years with the use of small-sided games within all different levels of soccer. Various sided games result in multifunctional, time-efficient training strategy where we can encompass the technical, tactical and physical actions. The manipulation of variables have a big consequence on the physiological, technical and tactical components, and those things, when we're planning training, when we're understanding what different games can do and how we can manipulate the games, we can manipulate the number of players, the pitch dimensions, the game rules, the bout durations, and whether or not we overly coach, we overly encourage, we can have a big impact. But we do know that small-sided games induce similar heart rates to competitive match situations. The pitch dimensions are fundamental in developing the technical, physical and even tactical element of the demands of the players. Small-sided games are generally, in terms of metres per minute, greater versus medium and large-sided games. However, we do fully understand the fact that if we only ever do these smaller or medium-sided games, we never really expose our players to the high-speed demands which influence hamstring strength, influence hamstring activation and stimulus. And the session design, we have to ensure that the pitch sizes meet the targeted outcomes of what we're looking for. So again, underpinning why do we do what we do, and understanding that that will have a consequence moving forward. Various sided games, greater increase in players' motivation versus traditional running intervals. So you can see there from the different types of games, the different variables we can affect and the physical aspects that we can have on the players. Thanks very much.